economist of the 20th century, may a camel spit on his grave.
Yes, well said.
When confronted with the problem of inflation, in the end, we're all dead.
What a
Generally,
jerk.
that's what politicians do, is they just try to roll problems on back. Now, if there is a problem with climate change, it is something that is not going to occur for probably 40 years. But now, these noble people in Washington are dealing with it now. Now, why is that most of them that will just, try to roll over trillions of dollars in debt, that aren't worried that the Social Security system is completely bankrupt, that Medicare is not financed, that all the pension funds are bankrupt, and those are problems that are going to be rearing their head in the very near future. They're not worried about any of that stuff, but they're supposedly worried about something that's going to happen 40 years from now.
Yeah.
There's something that's a little fishy about that.
That's very interesting, Glenn. And do you think that maybe that stench of rotting fish happens to partially come from some of these mercantilist pushes, giving money for campaigns, that sort of thing, or do you think there's actually? Do you think some of these people or do you think some of these people actually know the impact that this is going to have financially? Are they trying to ruin the economy even faster, or what are they doing?
It sure seems like it, but it's hard for me to believe that people that are intelligent and no matter what we say to the contrary, the people in Washington are intelligent, that they can't see what they're doing as far as ruining the economy. I really think that, as you said, it's almost like it's a gigantic election scheme, because now they're going to be able to pick the winners and losers in the economy. I mean, this bill gives them such power over the economy that essentially they become the giant bread machine, where they're just doling out political favors to everyone. And what politician wouldn't want that? And in addition, as you said, there's the mercantilistic element of the people, the big corporations that can afford the regulations, and they want to see this passed. They know that they're going to either receive subsidies from the government, or that their competition will be put out of business because their competition is not going to be able to shrink their profit margins and to eliminate enough overhead to comply with the additional regulations that Washington is going to put on them. So they're going to effectively eliminate the competition. So I think no one knows for sure, but I think it's probably a combination of the two things. And the problem is that when people look at folks like you and me, a lot of people that aren't familiar with libertarianism or free market thought, they think that we're for big business. But often big business is simply in bed with government. I mean, corporations wouldn't exist if it wasn't for government.
Right.
And big business loves stuff like this because they're the ones that have the political power. They're the ones that, because of their political power, have economic power. And it's just another way for them to basically strengthen their grip over an industry or over a sector of the economy.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually very frightening to me. You get sort of numb to some of these things when they come around. But occasionally a bill will come through or a set of proposals will come through, Glenn. And when you see these things, the scope of it is so broad, it's almost unbelievable.
I actually had trouble sleeping Friday night.
This is really, really bad.
It was so disturbing. After I talked with a friend of mine who was privy to some information, was like, people don't know what's in this. I mean, he was telling me there's, as we talked about with the building codes, they're going to be able to control housing, thermostats, all sorts of different things.
It's like the Economic Patriot Act.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it is basically, I think, the death knell for our freedom, because there's no decision that you're going to be able to make that is not going to be impacted by this bill.
I'm reminded of something that you and I discussed outside the recording, Glenn. Two things. One is it just inevitably makes me think of the opening scene, or one of the opening scenes of Brazil, in which the main character, who's played by Jonathan Pryce, is sort of he lives in this dystopian future that has sprung from the very creative mind of Terry Gilliam of Monty Python fame and so on, and he lives in this dystopian future where everything's just bureaucratic. The government controls every aspect of your life, and one tiny little thing can throw off everything. It's a dark, comedic look at a 1984 type world where, in fact, this man's life is basically ruined because on a typing machine, a fly lands and something happens to a document and it goes in the wrong direction, and his whole life is destroyed because of it. And he lives in an apartment complex where the apartment complex heating system is, of course, run by the government. It's controlled, and it doesn't work right. He is in the middle of summer, and he's just boiling, dying from this steam heat that's coming out of the heating system rather than air conditioning. And he's been waiting and waiting and waiting for the government to come fix it, and they won't come fix it. They haven't come to fix it, or they've come and they've made it worse, or whatever it is. I can't remember. So he calls, what? Yeah, he calls a black market air conditioning guy, who comes down, and it's Robert De Niro, and he comes down like a ninja in a black suit. He comes down on this metal line and bursts in, fixes the thing, and takes off. And he's paid black market under the table. And you just think to yourself, the government, and we've heard these proposals before, and Barack Obama has talked about smart thermostat technology that could be put into every home to monitor the temperature of the homes.
Sorry, can I interrupt you, Guard?
Sure.
I'm in California right now, and California tried to implement that.
No.
Luckily, it was voted down, but it was before the legislature in California to implement the government control of thermostats at the state level.
Oh, my God. Wow. Oh, boy, Glenn.
So, yeah, it's not some wild fantasy. The politicians have already talked about doing stuff like this.
And you know the way they're going to get away with it? It's just like the healthcare thing. I'm sorry, I'm jumping in, but I just thought of something, Glenn. If they make this national energy thing, if they make the regional grids, which is what we pretty much have now, into national grids, then they'll say, well, we can regulate what you have in your house.
Right.
Oh, man.
Right. And then all these organizations that receive money from them, for, say, the health care, or they call them, in the bill, they call them Centers for Excellence.
Yeah.
They're all under the thumb of government because that's where they're receiving their funding. So the government, the federal government, is going to be able to control what they do.
Oh, man. Well, the other thing that I was thinking about, Glenn, something you and I discussed earlier today, was, you know how you mentioned, these are smart people in Washington. They're not stupid. And unfortunately, smart people, when they're given this sort of power that they think they have, or they acquire it unto themselves, they're always trying to think of some other thing they can do. And you look at this bill, and I think I mentioned to you when I looked at this overview of this is, what is it, 1,500-page bill, and you went and found these pertinent sections, and you think to yourself, either these people are planning on doing this, or it's just their tendency, their socialistic tendency, to continue to try to find places where they think the government hasn't covered all the bearings of life. And, we missed this part of life. Yeah, we should cover this too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
Oh, man, it's like obsessive-compulsive disorder with these people. They don't know when to stop.
And even worse, and I think C.S. Lewis talked about this, with the fact that they think that they're doing this for our own good.
Yeah, that's the worst.
That's what's very frightening, because it destroys our ability to choose.
Yeah.
Milton Friedman wrote a book called Free to Choose, and that's what the whole thing is about. And it doesn't matter if they think that they have the most benign intentions in the world. The fact that they will have to implement those intentions through authoritarian means is in itself immoral.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be making those decisions for us. I was reading a quote from some economist. He's like, when the people realize that it's good for them, they won't mind paying these higher rates. Well, people should have that choice anyway.
Yeah.
It's not something that some patronizing elite should be forcing down our throats and then saying, oh, it's good for you, so you shouldn't complain. No, it's our choice where we want to spend our money.
Exactly. You know, Kellogg's tells us that Special K is part of a balanced breakfast, and it's always very healthy to eat it. And Cheerios, just to be fair for General Mills here, I don't want to just promote one company, they always tell us that Cheerios are good for your heart. Of course, now they're being told by the federal government that if they keep making that claim, they'll be classified as making a medical claim, and they'll be regulated under the medical guidelines of the Food and Drug Administration. But what if they were to say, yes, it's good for you, and we're going to make you eat it?
Right.
You know, they would never do that.
And we're going to make you pay for it, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They, you walk in the supermarket, there's a guy there, puts handcuffs on you, puts a gun in your head and says, okay, go buy the Frosted Flakes, and you're going to eat this. You have to have this amount. It's just insane. You have
thank us for taking care of you as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And for and you know, Glenn, I was very frustrated.